As a working parent to a spirited child, I struggled connecting with my son. Over time, I became an absent parent who only yelled at him for the things he did wrong. I wasn't even sure if I liked being a parent anymore. I felt unequipped, alone, and defeated. Please raise your hands if Allie's statement resonates with you as much as it does with me. Please raise them up if, like me and Allie, you have ever struggled as a parent. If it was all unicorns and rainbows, please keep them down. But if it felt more like throwing darts with spaghetti, please put them up, y'all. I know it. Parenting is hard, right? It is messy. It is physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausting. Good evening, everyone. My name is Allan Stockelberg. I am the Executive Director of Parent Aid Child Abuse Prevention Center, and we are building brighter futures for all our children. For over 29 years, Parent Aid has worked to prevent child abuse. Last year, we provided in-home support and education to over 125 families and served over 650 parents and caregivers in our group classes. These opportunities are open to all families in Pima County because we believe that by serving all families, not just those at risk, right, that we begin to solve the very real and all too common tragedy that is child abuse. We serve all families because child maltreatment knows no color, no salary, no language, no gender, or class. And as we witnessed here tonight, every family, every parent struggles. We aim to foster a community in which all parents feel comfortable sharing with, learning from, and supporting each other. Because I know that my parenting strategies, my parenting choices affect you and your family. And I know that yours affects mine. For better or for worse, all our paths are connected. Every $1,500 we collectively invest here tonight, you provide in-home support to a family for a full year, which has lasting impacts not only on the parents and children, but on the greater community as well, because every dollar invested in our home visitation program will be returned to our community 15-fold in decreased costs to the child welfare, criminal justice, educational, and healthcare systems. Remember Allie's story from earlier? It doesn't end there. Because of the support and education from Parent Aid, I have grown as a parent. Sorry, I completely lost it. I have grown as a parent. I have gained new perspectives by meeting new families, and I am finally enjoying my role as a parent. So, thank you. Sorry, man, I lost it right there at the end.
You got this. You know what you're doing. You know the material.
It's when I get to somebody else's words that I kind of lose it.
And that was off the top, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about this the last time, is that we need a strong indicator that it's not you and your words, and I still am not getting that. So maybe say, I got a letter, and this woman said blah, 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 blah. Like just flat out say, listen, I got a letter, and here's what it said, blah, 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 blah. How many of you can relate? I mean, just call it out. I would. That way we know, because then we won't feel cheated like we talked about before. But I'm telling you, you are so conversational, you are so comfortable. It's crazy how ahead you are in that. It all felt natural to me. The movements were great. I was following along. I got the humor. You were very relatable, all of that. And then at the end, instead of saying, remember Allie's story, just say, remember that letter? Because I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember the letter. But Allie, maybe not. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just fine-tuning it.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Christy. It is just fine-tuning it. So it is okay to just pause instead of saying, sorry, I completely lost it. You don't want to get in the habit of doing that because we're used to people pausing because that's probably I'm going through a thinking process and I want to take you someplace else. So try to think about that as you're working through it. I missed the first ask for some reason. I think there was a lot that was going on. There was only one. Okay. So I think there was so much in the messaging of that it was hard for me to actually understand what the actual ask was. So just look at that part of it. For me, a little bit, sometimes the pacing's too much the same. So think about your pacing and how sometimes it is really important to have a pause in there, to give us some time to think about what you're saying. And I completely agree with Christy's story, because for whatever reason, I thought it was you telling me this was you. I didn't realize it was a letter. So I would definitely change that up.
If it was a letter, I can't remember. Was it a letter?
It was a letter. It was a letter that a parent wrote, and we've struggled with trying to connect, like, that this was a letter, but that it also applies to all of us. Like, they can be my words just as much as anybody else's words, but the success story can't be my success story. It's Allie's success story.
So I have a thought for you about that, which is, what if you started by saying, how many of you in this room are parents? Raise your hand, and then keep your hand in the air if it's really hard. Or, I mean, I don't know if it would be too much to say, raise your hand if sometimes it really sucks. Like, then I'm like, oh yeah, right? And then say, last week I got a letter from Allie, and read it. It's very awkward the way it is now, and I think it will affect your ability to be effective if you don't change it. The other thing is, I think you do something that I do, so I recognize it, which is that when you're nervous, you smile.
Yep.
Almost like you're gonna start laughing, right? Like, I'm the kind of person who would laugh at a funeral, seriously, because I'm so, And so when you're giving the quote from Allie, you're smiling the whole time. And it's really tragic. So you have to figure out how to make your face do something else while you're reading that quote, and really drive it home for us that that's what the things that you're saying are horrible, right? So I think if you do that, though, it's going to be so strong. And then I'm thinking a lot about your ask at the end, which isn't an ask. You realize that, like, you don't really ask, and I think that's a mistake. So one of the things that we know in fundraising research is that if you say something to us like, if you all collectively give blah, 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 it's vastly less effective than if you say, if you give. And I know that everybody does that, and so it starts to feel a little bit rote, but everybody does that for a reason. So if you want me to give $1,500, you have to ask me for $1,500, because you made it sound like all of us together are going to give $1,500. So then I think, oh, I'm going to give $15 because I'm part of a group, right? So I think you have to make that. And I loved the way you phrased the $1,500, and I loved the way you talked about every dollar invested, ... And I think you could bring that right home by saying that means if you give X, it's going to be multiplied to X, because that's what you gave us, like a little math problem there, right? So I really like that, but you have to change the language and make it about you giving.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a way you can deal with the facial thing, watch yourself in the mirror. Watch yourself in the mirror. Watch yourself in the mirror. It'll force you to go, oh, wait a minute, that is not how I want the audience to see me when I'm talking about this issue.
Thank you.